Andrew Ross McMahon was born on September 3rd, 1982 in Concord, Massachusetts, of the United States of America. From the age of 8, Andrew took an interest in music and the piano due to the death of his grandfather.
I think when you see somebody close to you die for the first time, it's like it has a very powerful effect, and for me it had a really mind-blowing effect. And I started playing piano right after he passed away, and for like a year just wrote songs about, like, I think just dealing with that. And it was a really weird sort of time, but that's sort of how I've always written songs, has been, I think, out of a need to answer a question or sort out something in my own head.
By the age of 9, Andrew had learnt to play the piano completely by ear and had already started writing and composing songs. His family then moved to Ohio, where Andrew became a local legend. He played piano music and solos completely by ear and without learning to read sheet music. Andrew and his family then moved to Orange County, California, where he formed his first band, Left Here. But the band soon broke up in 1997, despite winning countless local awards. But in 1998, Andrew formed the band Something Corporate. The band released their debut EP back in 2001 and became a big success over in America. Over the next 3 years, they would tour America, play in Europe, and sell out shows in Japan.
So I could go to heaven just like you.
In the summer of 2004, Andrew, along with the rest of his bandmates, felt physically tired and burnt out. The whole band were exhausted from non-stop touring, so Something Corporate decided to take a break. Andrew went home, saw his doctor, and started writing songs he believed wouldn't work as Something Corporate tracks.
I have always written, since I was 9 years old, I've been writing songs, with or without a band. And so when I got home, I started writing tons of music and, just decided in an effort not to lose, the momentum or lose the songs, I went in and just go in for like a day at a time and record, like the song that I wrote that week.
From an empty room on the first floor, as the cars pass by the liquor store, I deconstruct my thoughts at this piano.
Kind of had like 7 or 8 songs that had this really interesting sort of feel that was way different than anything that I had worked on, and it sort of started taking shape as its own project. And I talked to the guys and I talked to my manager, and we just decided initially just to kind of find a way to put it out.
Andrew decided to go solo, and Jack's Mannequin was born.
This is morning, it's when I spend the most time thinking about what I've given up. Where are you now? As I'm swimming through the stereo, I'm like right now. Without you, I've got friends who will help me pull through. A spaceman that can't get high. I'm coming back to my girl laid away. The ambulance to come pick us up off the floor. What did you possibly expect under this condition? So slow down. This night's a perfect shade of dark blue, dark blue. Have you ever been alone in a crowded room when
While touring America with his new band, Jack's Mannequin, Andrew was suffering from voice problems, but continued to play live shows and work on his new album, Everything in Transit.
I made a point to have recurring themes on this record. I've always loved artists like, Bob Dylan, who you hear a song and down the line you'll hear it rehashed in some other song, or another elements recur throughout his records. And I wanted to do that on this record, and one of the themes I developed was the idea of this sort of sick person trying to get well again. And so it became sort of this odd coincidence when I actually became physically sick.
oh my God, this hurts like hell.
But then Andrew began to notice some irregularities.
I really started noticing things were a little out of whack. Walking from one plane to the next, catching a connecting flight, I could barely carry my bag. I would cut myself, I would hurt myself and it wouldn't heal.
On the 27th of May 2005, Andrew cancelled all Jack's Mannequins tours due to health problems. He decided to visit his doctor so he could put his mind at ease while finishing the debut album.
I've got my things.
He asked if he could take my blood, and he did. And the next day was the final day of mastering for everything in transit, and I got a phone call. Both messages on my machine were from my doctor, saying, you know, wherever you are, you know, you should go someplace and sit, and we need to talk. And I talked to a handful of doctors that afternoon, and they sent me right to the hospital because they said apparently my blood counts were just at such a decreased level that it was indicative that I had what's called acute lymphocytic leukemia.
On the 1st of June 2005, Andrew was diagnosed with acute lymphatic leukemia, known as ALL. Upon being told this news, Andrew turned on his video camera and kept a video diary of his time in the hospital.
I didn't introduce myself. Andrew McMahon, 22 years old. I play for 2 bands, one called Jack's Mannequin, one called Something Corporate. And I am now officially a leukemia patient, so see you soon.
ALL crowds out normal red blood cells and overproduces white blood cells in bone marrow. It can be fatal if left untreated for a couple of months or even a few weeks. The cure success rate for children is 85%, but for adults it's just over 50%. Andrew then started months and months of chemotherapy. He started losing his hair and eventually went completely bald due to the treatment.
It's starting to get harder in here. For the first time, I think, in all of this, I've become totally afraid.
But Andrew was determined to beat the disease.
Had this thought in my mind that just because I'm going through this, that people are going to be paying attention the whole time. And I realized something about these kinds of stories, that they kind of make news for a minute or two, and then people tend to forget about them. I know that there are people who will be there through the whole thing, and there are people who will probably disappear, and the phone calls will probably become fewer at some point. The doctors insisted that I go on Monday and Tuesday to the sperm bank before I start chemo. He actually held off chemo for 4 days because he wants me to be able to have a family when this is all done. And I'm not really sure that I want to have a family, but I'll say, you know, I think it's a noble and just cause. I really would just like to start beating this cancer.
Andrew was left with 2 options, either years of chemotherapy or a bone marrow transplant that had to be a perfect match. Fortunately, he found just that in his sister Katie. As a thank you, he and the rest of Something Corporate wrote and recorded a song called Katie, dedicated to her. On the day of the surgery, August 23rd, 2005, by coincidence, was also the release of his album. Both were a success.
2 to 1.
Andrew let the fans know what was going on with internet diaries and video blogs throughout his chemotherapy.
I felt like, you know, it helped me move on to the next thing, and I was hoping that it would help them. The nurses came in and out like some strange class reunion. These people who I relied upon every day for months to bring me news, the good, the bad, check my vital signs and cheer me up, not to mention several less glamorous tasks. I made a point, I think, mainly to write when I felt good or when I felt like I was, you know, when I had something positive to say.
So whenever Andrew had the strength, he would tell the fans about his condition and how he was doing in the hospital.
What's going on, you guys? It's me, just checking in to say hey, and wanted to say thank you all, first and foremost, for all of the amazing comments that you put up on the website. Thank you all so much for everything, for all your support, all your love, and I'll see you soon. All right.
I had this amazing group of fans who have been just like a second support system.
I just have to say thank you all for coming out tonight and being here on a very important day for me.
They're an intense and passionate group of people, and I didn't want to leave them in the dark because I knew that they would be worried.
These hammers and
5 years ago, I heard my first Something Corporate song, and at that moment, I felt safe.
From a box-filled garage
I know that Andrew McMahon's music will always be the one thing that's never going to let me down. It's like his music is my best friend. It's there for me when I'm happy, when I'm sad, hopeless, anything.
I met Andrew and the band, and I was so thrilled because it's one of those moments when you meet people that you idolize and people that you respect creatively, and then you meet them in person and you just hope that you're going to like them. And these guys are so nice, so likable, so talented.
I mean, I've listened to those songs thousands of times and they never get old. That seems really weird to me, but it's because the meaning is endless. I always find something new. I could never thank Andrew enough. His music just gave me something to believe in.
Give me something to believe in, a breath from the breathing. So write it down and don't think that I'll close my eyes, 'cause lately I'm not dreaming. So what's the point in sleeping? It's just that at night I've got nowhere to hide. So I'll write you a lullaby. Lullaby.
I spoke to Jennifer Hoyle, a psychology student from the University of Liverpool, and asked if music could help a person express themselves during a difficult time in their life.
If you're a musician, then probably, yeah, more private people would rather to write a diary or music. You know, other people would prefer to speak to people. Some people would prefer to go and give to charity or something, just to balance things out a bit.
I then asked how someone would act and live their life after recovering from such a serious illness.
They'll be a lot more grateful for life. They'll try to encourage others to be more grateful for their life. They'll do a lot less complaining. They'll just generally have a more positive outlook on everything, despite what's happened to them.
On July 9th, 2006, Andrew announced at a Jack's Mannequins concert that night would be the last night he would have to take medication for his cancer treatment. Later that month, he founded a non-profit charity, the Dear Jack Foundation, to raise funds for cancer research and to create leukemia awareness. He then proposed to and married his high school sweetheart, Kelly Hatch, on December 16th, 2006. He also dedicated the album to Kelly. Andrew then started work on his new album, The Glass Passenger, but with new songs about recovering and suffering from horrific disease, along came a chance to let the world know about his journey. In June of this year, Andrew McMahon's story will be told to the world in the documentary movie Dear Jack. Dear Jack documents Andrew's time in the hospital, his chemotherapy treatment, his bone marrow transplant, and his triumphant return to touring the world with his band Jack's Mannequin. He released his second album, The Glass Passenger, in September of 2008. The album debuted at number 8 in the American charts and was the number 1 most downloaded records on iTunes for several months last year. Andrew can now look forward to touring the world once again, but he will never forget his journey.
The thought of me still being in chemotherapy right now and still being sick it horrifies me.
But he hopes he can put the experience behind him and focus on enjoying life once again as a rock star with his feet firmly on the ground.
It's over in my mind. They'll never call it a cure. They just don't. But after a couple of years, they say, if you make it through those 2 years, the chances of it coming back are pretty slim. I learned how much I love music, but there is so much more to a balanced life than always going and always pushing and never stopping where you are and saying, this is it, this is great.